this call is being recorded. So if you feel uncomfortable with being recorded, just listen in, turn off your audio and video, and you won't appear. So we will make the recording available afterwards publicly. And we will have a sort of a panel discussion today. And if you have any questions, you can write in the chat and we'll try to answer them. You can cut in as well. If you don't want to cut in or write in the chat, you can also add it to the meeting agenda, and we'll monitor all of these sources, and we'll make sure that your question gets answered. This is the Grafana community call. We've been doing a few of these, but we're gonna do even more the upcoming months. So we're doing these community calls the third Thursday every month. So keep that in mind at 3 p.m. UTC time. The topic will change, but if you have any suggestions on what you would like to see, reach out to me or anyone from the Grafana team, and we'll try to find the people that can answer those questions ahead of time. Or if you want to show something to the community, also reach out to me and we can give you some time to show off your new plugin or whatever it could be. Could also talk about pull requests that you're working on, for example. So a lot of opportunities to shape these calls. Also like to highlight that we also, in addition to this one, we are running a UX community call as well, which is running on the first Monday every month at 4 p.m. During those calls, we're focusing more on the UX, the design of Grafana. So feel free to chime in there as well. Today, however, we're gonna talk about signing plugins. And plugin signing is something that was launched in 7.0, but we're gonna roll out that even further in the coming months. And today, hopefully, we can talk a little bit about it, what our plans are, and how it affects you. And you'll get a chance to ask some questions. So with me today, I have a panel of Ryan McKinley, Daniel Lee, and Brian Gann, all of which are in the Grafana team and are equipped to answer any questions you might have. Isn't that right?
Totally.
Yeah, totally. So cool. So to start off with, I have a few questions that we could kick off with, and feel free to add any questions again to the chat or the meeting notes, and we'll add those as well. But I'm just gonna start quick firing a few questions, and hopefully we'll get some answers. So I mentioned, signing plugins, but there might be people in here that have no idea what I'm talking about. What does it mean to sign a plugin? Anyone who care to answer?
So just for a quick overview of kind of what our process is for it is, as part of the build process, at the end of it, you've built a thing that you want to publish and give to people so they can distribute it. Before doing that, we run through and we'll take a hash of all of the files that exist in that bundle. So most importantly, the executable files that will run, the JavaScript files that end up on people's computers, and then we put that in a manifest and say that this file has to match this hash, so cryptographic hash. And then we take that manifest and sign it, so put a signature around it saying that this thing has not changed, and the public key to that signature is within Grafana core, so that when Grafana itself starts to run and a plugin, before we load a plugin, it walks through, checks that the files that you published are the same ones that are actually on the server when it's running. So our current process is when we hit a backend plugin, so a native program running on your server, if that does not match, it won't run that program. And that helps us for a bunch of reasons, security the biggest the biggest one is you want to make sure that what you publish is actually what people are running, so that nothing surprising happens.
Cool. So why did we start signing plugins then?
Oh, maybe I jumped the gun there. I mean, the biggest reason is in particular, as we expand the use of these native plugins, so things that are actually running on your server, it gets pretty dicey to start saying, hey, just install this plugin and we'll run it. So we really want to make sure that everyone has a mechanism to know that what was published and went through some verification process is actually what they're running. This lets us expand into, potentially having in-app downloads, where from Grafana you can say which plugins you want, and that would be a little bit safer than I feel our current process is now. So that's the back end side. On the front end side, it's arguably just as bad or worse, that if the JavaScript files change on your server, what your users end up running in their browsers is equally problematic. So that became a big thing. And the other part is kind of, I would say, a commercial reason for sort of how Grafana exists as a business in open source. And we encourage the plugin community to build stuff that people use, but we also have historically made our money from big companies. I'll say there's 3 big ones that you can think of that have services that you pay for when you use them, and so they actually pay us to build plugins. Stackdriver, Azure, all the AWS suite, they pay us to manage those. And we need to figure out ways that they don't just replace what we're doing. So there's some way of trying to hold on to a business reason, but also add security to all the users.
Yeah, I think I'd also say that the plugin signing is part of, I suppose, what we're hoping to do more in the future, which is build community plugins as well. So yes, even just on the front end, for example, if you do an npm install, you can sneak in things into the npm packages. How would we ever find that? So it's just about starting to, if you're going to be publishing community plugins that people are installing on their servers all over the world, then you want to get more control over that. And hopefully as well, making life easier for our community. As we'll do the building, we'll do the packaging, and we'll do the signing.
So do I need to sign my plugins then in the future?
So moving forward,
I have to.
Yeah, moving forward, we're going to start requiring signing all plugins that get published and distributed. So development mode doesn't need to be doesn't need to be signed, but as things get distributed, yes, they need to be signed.
So, I mean, do we have any roadmap for this, or when will I actually be able to sign my plugin? I know there's a few that's already asking for when they can do this.
So within a few weeks, I'm going to put very soon. We are hoping, sooner than this call, but that didn't happen. So we'll expose kind of our internal tools to external users, so that in your build process, you can request a signature as part of your bundling process. The longer term plan is to sort of help with the whole CI process. But initially, we're going to sort of expose the tools that we have to the whole community for signing plugins, and then moving that forward.
Cool. So you touched a little bit about, we're going to expose some of our internal tools, but for me as a plugin author, then what would I have to do? How do I actually sign it? So down the road.
So in the current build process, I assume, so using Grafana Toolkit right now runs through and builds builds your whole distribution. So it sets up the dist folder that has the executable, the plugin the plugin.json, all the files that you want to run. Within that, we're going to, either in Grafana CLI or Grafana Toolkit, still TBD to be determined, we will have a command line that essentially looks at that folder, scans it, generates a manifest, uses your Grafana.com API key to send that to the Grafana.com API and request a signed version of that plugin that's tied to who you were. That gets saved in your manifest before getting published. So it's essentially an API call in your build process that generates.
This is what I tried to do. I saw when I built in that there is no this API key, right? So I created this API key using web UI. I tried to use it and I got denied. Yeah, so it's going to be allowed, right?
So the change that's happening is currently, because as we were working out how this actually works, we only allowed API keys from Grafana staff to generate these manifests. So right now, everything signed is signed by people who built it at Grafana. And the change that we're making, that it will be released soon, is that the same call that you made will work with your API key, not with one of ours. But exactly what you tried is what will work.
Okay.
So the next question then, is you mentioned that building with Grafana Toolkit, and we will expose an API call for signing, but how will I actually publish a plugin in the future?
So initially, if you're talking in the next few months, as this signing requirement rolls out, it's going to look very similar to what we've got now, which is, admittedly not a very smooth process of you build it, the dist file, you essentially commit your dist folder into GitHub, that gets submitted to the repository. Longer term, the methods that I would like to move for community calls, and then also as something that you could purchase for internal things, is to actually have you use a Grafana CI system where we could build stuff for you and run it through the build pipeline for our community plugins.
So then I wouldn't have to check in my dist folder. I would just give the code itself and we'll build it.
Yeah, but that's a little ways off. But long term, that would be the better plan. And in particular for things like, if we're building it from the source, we could also run continuous integration to make sure that changes to our master branch won't break, or rather, if they break your plugin, that we would know ahead of time and figure out whether that's something that the master build of Grafana needs to fix or something that's within your plugin.
Yeah. So that are some questions that we quick questions. If you want to learn more, we just published a page on this on grafana.com /legal/plugins where you can find a little more information about how this will work. And as I think, Daniel, you also posted a link to the plugin signature verification page in the documentation, where you can read a little bit more about technically how you would sign it. So go ahead and read up on those as well.
Yeah, the other key thing listed on that page is the distinction of kind of what signing levels are. For community plugins, it's pretty straightforward of if you're publishing your non-commercial plugin in Grafana, we give you a key, that all should work. The commercial ones are really to say, if your plugin is really in support of a commercial product, we'll have to enter into some agreement for that. And then if you're writing a plugin that is used for your internal use, your organizational use within your own Grafana, there's a private version of that key. So it's something that never ends up in the Grafana repository.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess that opens up to questions as well. Any thoughts on what you've been hearing so far? Is this going to affect you in any major way, or do you feel like This is just no big deal. We'll just get going.
What is a private plugin level for?
That's for, for example, I used to work at a place where we made a bunch of custom plugins that controlled a hydroelectric turbine. So some buttons on it that you press the button and it turns the thing on and off. It made sense in our context. It's not something that we really want to distribute to the world. Makes no sense as a community plugin. So it's something I could build, sign that, distribute it within Grafana, or run it within Grafana with no problems so customers could use it. That's really what that's for. So it's small, I would say it's for things where you built them for your internal use, for your organizational use, and aren't intended to distribute them widely. So.
And there are like lots of those out there in the wild.
Right, because for private, you can actually use any your own FTP server, any HTTP server, right? You can just take it from there. You don't need to use Grafana repository for that.
Yeah,
exactly.
no, definitely. You can distribute them however you like, but they still will need to be signed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the intention is you can run them, but we want to make sure that Grafana, the server, is able to say everything that is running on this server was intended to be what was published.
But still, the option to allow unsigned plugins will exist, right? You can override it.
No, so in dev mode, you can remove it. So in dev mode, no signing plugins, but the running unsigned plugins is going to go away.
Yeah.
Okay.
The idea is there, we with the Grafana CLI that you'll be able to sign your plugin, so you won't have to like send us our plugin or anything like that. And then in the Grafana UI, there will be a distinction between like what's a published plugin and what's a private plugin.
So.
Okay, so when you're going to remove this unsigned option then?
Sometime in the future, not in the next, I think 2 or 3 months at least.
Yeah, we need to make sure that this runs smoothly before.
Yeah, exactly. So especially the private part, like it has to work smoothly. Otherwise, there's no point in rolling it out. We do not want to put a huge obstacle in front of people.
Right. From my point, why asking this question from my point, right? We have this version of my data source which is already signed in the repository and the people are using it. But at the same time, when new features requested and I want customer to try it, something new, and sometimes I cannot verify it on my own because it's on data set something, and I just send them, this is your build, right? Just take it from the master, run it with your unsigned option, and you're good to go, right? If you will remove this unsigned option, then he cannot take anything from master and run it.
It would be adding the distinction of, so within Grafana CLI, if they download it, sort of get your Lotus thing, they can run, well, one, they can run in dev mode. That actually helps. But you can run you can run the Grafana CLI to create a manifest for it. And you could also, because it's community plugin, you could create that manifest in your distribution, right? So if they're taking it and running and installing it, if they're taking a built version, you should put the manifest there, would be my. So it doesn't, okay, it's not only the ones that get published into the catalog, I'd say. Your development builds can also be signed.
Okay, I see. So it just create this checksum, right, with manifest, but it's not going to publish it. Okay.
Exactly.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
It's separate from the publish process. It's part of a build process.
Yeah. All plugins needs to be signed, but not necessarily published anywhere.
Yeah.
Okay, that's clear.
So a question on, I'm sorry?
No, I was just going to say that, yeah, we won't be making that change until the Grafana CLI is super smooth, and that is like easy to do.
Documented for that use case, etc. So
yeah. So we have a question in the chat. Can we run the CLI remotely? Do you mean if we can sign using Grafana CLI? Is that what you're asking?
I'm not
Yes,
sure exactly what the question is.
So,
you can do it from the command line, yes, or if that's what you mean.
Yeah, can you sign a plugin from command line?
Yes.
Yes, and you can include it in your CI builds and whatever else. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so you could, in your CI build, you can run the Grafana CLI or Grafana toolkit. I'm not sure if we've decided exactly where we go, but then you would run that and get manifest, and then, yeah, you would.
Yes, when I say can, I mean in the future.
Yeah.
Yes.
In the near future. That's
And I mean, the Grafana CLI is only, it talks to the grafana.com API, where the signing, will be exposed. So.
Yeah. So I think like Ryan just to repeat, yes, you will create a manifest locally, so you're not sending your code. You send a manifest to the grafana.com API, which will be signed and then sent back.
Awesome. Well, if you have any more questions on plugin signing, you can just add them and we'll get to them a little later on. We have a few more things that we want to show you. So feel free to add questions, and I'm just going to check that so we can move on with the next slides. We do have exciting things the thing we wanted to show you. We've just published a data source for GitHub, and I thought that Kevin could talk more about it. You want to take over?
Yeah, sure. Should I
want to share your screen?
my screen? Yeah.
Yeah. See if I can unshare. If I can find it somewhere.
Yep. So I'm going on tour from meeting to meeting, trying to get the word out.
Yeah. There,
he's
you should be able to.
He's trying to get GitHub stars, just so you know, too. I just put it out there.
I already started. I was the first star. We'll work for GitHub stars.
Yeah. If I don't get 100, then I'm going to be in big trouble. So
that's not
go start the repository. I'm not sure how good this looks or how bad it looks on this super widescreen monitor. But so basically, this is a data source that allows you to
maybe
visualize.
You can zoom in a little bit more.
Yeah, or I can maybe do this. No.
You can change the aspect ratio and share.
Is there a way to do that in whatever? This is probably fine, right? You guys can see this.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
All right. So this data source allows you to visualize GitHub events from their API. So this is like looking at, I want to see like when a release was pushed, right? And I want to overlay that over a graph of like my application performance. So my dogs are very active right now, very conveniently, but so I want to look at when a release was pushed so I can see maybe how that has affected my application performance. You be quiet. And then you can look at, the number of commits or something that was requested from our infrastructure team was to see how PRs are aging. So like the average, so I picked a repository that wasn't Grafana this time. This is from like a colleague of mine in the Ori organization. They have a average pull request open time of about 2 days. And that's some of the data that you can get from this data source.
I would not put 2 days in red personally.
No, I picked the default. Whatever the default was, that's what this is set at. 2 days is really good. And then one thing to keep in mind if you're a user of this is I'm always going to talk about this, the limitations on your access token. You only get 5,000 requests an hour. So to combat that,
responsible.
Yeah, right. To help you guys out with that, we implemented some pretty aggressive caching. So you'll see I'm going to refresh here, and every little bit of data that was in here is going to show up like instantly because it's cached for all of the users of this data source. Now, you start changing stuff like changes to keto, right? And it's going to have to reload it, and then there goes some of your allowance. So be mindful of that, and that's something that we're constantly working to improve. So, any questions?
I see that there's a drop down for the repository. This supports query variables as well.
Yep, it does.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
It's based on. I think I have my Grafana set up not properly. This is showing me mine, and it should be showing me ones from this organization. I think I need to set the refresh time for that. Refresh never. There we go.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so here's all of the repositories from the Ori organization. And there's quite a few different variables that you can set up, actually.
I haven't looked into his the data source. I saw that you publish it. My question is, when do you use the one API call or many API calls to show this stats? The multi-stats?
We use several API calls. Well, it depends, right? For each panel, it's going to be at least one. For some of them, like if I wanted to look at the commits over like the last 2 years, this right here, 277. That is 3 API calls because you're limited to 100 nodes or 100 data points per page. So that's going to be 3 different pages.
Right. My question is more if you have in stats section, you have commits, you have releases, tags. Is it one API call or it's 3 API calls? Because this is the way how I see that when I have a multi-stats and it's kind of returned by the same API call, I have to run the same call 3 times, right? To get them in multi-stats, which makes it an efficient way.
So there's also a feature called like when you select your data source, you can get your results from other panels in the dashboard, which lets you have one panel request a bunch of data and then other panels reuse parts of it. That mixed with transformations lets you do stuff like a call that gets a bunch of stats in one API call and then reusing them in a few panels. So that's the dashboard data source.
And how do you do that? Is it defined?
Show an example of that because that's a probably not a very well known feature.
I don't even know about it.
Right, because it became inefficient, right? When you run the same API calls to show it in the multi-stats, and I didn't know the other way.
So in your panel, in your dashboard right there, edit like the tags, edit one of those. Yeah, edit tags. And then the data source selection, you can pick dashboard.
Right.
I mean, you can pick Grafana. Is it
Grafana?
I gotta scroll down. Dashboard.
Yeah.
Oh, and I can pick a different panel.
And then you can pick. Yep.
Cool. So like releases.
Yeah, this is on our list of things to document because, most people don't know that the dashboard data source is actually shared queries.
Yep.
So, yeah.
So you could make one nice one big panel that does all your queries, and then pick which metric you want to display on different panels, so that you're not having repeated API calls.
Right.
Okay.
And
I see.
That mixed with transforms.
Real nice.
Mm-hmm.
The real plan for that longer term is to have dashboard level queries. So essentially queries that execute outside of the context of a panel. So because the issue with it in its current form is that at least that query that has everything has to have a visualization somewhere, which may not actually be what you want.
I guess you could just put a table panel and just hide it in a row. Could just collapse it and have it as a source. But yeah.
Yeah, the workarounds are a little ugly. You can actually put a query on a panel, switch it to a text panel, hide it.
Yeah.
If the row is hidden, then won't the lazy loading thing prevent the query from being run?
Good question. I don't think so.
It should, but the way the shared queries works is if it's referenced through a shared query, it forces it, like the execution is triggered by the panel that's reusing it. So it's not waiting for the hidden panel to query. The one that's referencing it forces the hidden panel. So.
Is there a demo site for the GitHub dashboard?
No, not at the moment. However, the plugin ships with a dashboard that has like everything configurable. And it's free. You can just install it.
You want to show where you do the where you can install it? It's also a feature that some people may not be familiar with.
Yes, let me find it.
It's actually in the data source config. There's another tab for dashboards.
Oh, really?
And it's good to know if you're developing data source plugins that you can do that, where you
I will
can
share my screen.
Yeah.
And we will discover it together. Under GitHub. Do I do that here? Or do I...
Yeah,
Yep,
wherever.
that's exactly.
Okay,
Right
okay.
there.
Right here? What am I looking for?
You click dashboards. It should have shown it.
I'm seeing a few
it
errors
looks
up there.
This
got
is
an
also me running it locally.
Oh.
So maybe that's why. But it would be... So I also haven't released it since I've added the sample dashboard, so that could also be a problem.
Normally, you'll see a list of dashboards in there, and there will be a button to load and reload, or install and reinstall the dashboard.
Live demoing, everyone.
Yeah.
I was wondering if maybe there was a...
AppD has a couple, I think. ServiceNow does as well. If you have that in there.
ServiceNow. Dashboards. All right, so it
There
will
you
show
go.
up right here. If it was released. I think
That's what it
think
looks
what's happening is it's seeing it in my JSON, but it's like, hey, that doesn't exist remotely.
So it's real nice to be able to bundle in some sample dashboards, and users can import them if they want to.
Cool. I didn't know about that, actually. Neat.
Cool. I don't see any more. Oh, actually, there's 2 questions in the agenda. Unless anyone says more questions regarding the GitHub plugin. So add new platform to Grafana Go SDK.
This is mine. So
Oh,
what
okay.
it means actually, because I just didn't want to hijack with GitHub and just put it with questions. So
Okay.
this is question mostly for Ryan.
Yep.
Our community users, which use Redis data source, they wanted to use it everywhere. I already submitted with a pull request to add ARM64. Now they trying it on ARM32 because it's a default one for Raspberry Pi. And I know that new Macs are coming, right? It's going to be a new platform again.
Yep.
So what is your approach to add with new platforms, and how is we supposed to bundle it? Because every with backend binary, it's 30 megabytes, right? something like that. So you have 6 of them, it's 200 megabytes, or maybe something else. I don't know what they're going to use next.
This
maybe.
is where having our CI process is going to help a lot. It's a little bit of like where we're cautious right now of exploding the executable for each of those. So long term, the things I would like to do is I think we should expand the list of what's possible to build. Just like ARM, all the platforms that Grafana supports, we should make sure that the SDK can support. The real question is how do we bundle them and the like. When we're actually published in our catalog, we can set a separate download for each platform. So the download actually only includes the platform that they're on. So from Grafana repository, you actually don't have to send all 6 platforms that are supported aren't in the same zip. There's a separate distribution for each platform. So that's part of it. The other would be, can we combine some plugins together? So multiple plugins so that you're not having, 30 meg files for each plugin. But yeah, no, that's why it's kind of limited to 3, because the easy tooling now is put them all together and send it all as one zip. But the real solution is a separate distribution for each platform.
And we've done that for some of our enterprise plugins. They actually do have separate zip files, and each one of them are signed individually. So you're only downloading the smallest amount needed for the platform.
But that process does not mix with the process of committing your dist folder into GitHub, right? Yep. So those two are kind of next to each other. So we'll solve that larger distribution problem by essentially removing GitHub as our distribution mechanism.
So what is the current solution? Because I kind of hacked Go SDK to get it to one of the users who wants to use it on Raspberry Pi. Yep. And I wanted to ask you, should I submit new pull request to allow ARM?
Yeah, absolutely. For anything like that is super helpful to everybody, because people want to use all these plugins on Raspberry Pi. Let's make that happen. The separate question is, what do we put in our normal distribution process? How do we expand that out? So for sure, it should be in the SDK, whether it's built by default or whether it's an explicit thing, and how it goes through our pipeline is something we can work on.
So for next my plugins, then I can bundle 5 executables, right? Or 6, how many of them required? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Making your 250 meg download, right? So.
Because the users, they open the issue for Redis data source saying, I cannot run it on Raspberry Pi because this file does not there, right? And Grafana never check if it's supported. But I see the value. I mean, this is something I wanted to try myself on Raspberry Pi. Yeah. To try Grafana with data sources.
Yeah. Yeah. No, for the SDK, submit any pull requests to expand the platforms so they match where Grafana can run.
Okay. And my next question is how two panels can interact together. I saw that Marcus recently posted one of the examples how interact with the variables, template variables. You can change it, right? In one panel, and another panel will show more information about it and do the API call. Is there any other way to interact between panels or variables away?
That variables is the current solution. Very soon we have an event bus that will allow sending events. Currently it's only available in the Angular side, or you can get the app events, and that's for things like a hover. So currently if you hover over a graph, it sends the position to all of everyone that's listening to that event. That's kind of minor. We want to extend that so that more rich interactions are available.
And when?
Marcus, you're on mute.
Which kind of interactions are you looking for?
As I mentioned before at the beginning of the call, I just wanted to make my Grafana dashboards interactive. So when I have a table of nodes or clusters, for example, I click on one of them and I want to have a special panel show with information about this cluster, which do another API call. And if I click something else, maybe something else.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds like you can do with variables.
Yeah, that sounds like data links and variables.
Right. It's okay. I mean, I just maybe there is another way, like event mechanism, which I can use, but variables will work.
Yeah, no, the ones that are interesting is that if you know what it is, like if you, we're running into similar issues of like, if I have a table that represents a bunch of trace data and I have a trace viewer on the same page and I click on a trace, I want to make sure that I'm able to kind of cleanly show that in another panel. That's the use case we're really solving for now, but it's really the same kind of scope that you're looking at.
All right.
Yeah. I mean, it's it might be a little hacky, but you could use the variables and then hide them if you just want to use them as like a state in your dashboard. But I mean, it's possible, but yeah, things like hovering and it shows up in all the panels, stuff like that. We are looking to do that with the new event bus, definitely.
Okay, that works.
Cool.
Okay, I'm not seeing any more questions in the chat or in the agenda. Is there anything else that you can come to think of, or so maybe Richie, you can remind me where the community calls are, the recordings. Where will we publish these?
So usually we link to them from the meeting note documents, but we'll also start uploading all of them to YouTube and then just have specific playlists, one per different community call, so it's easier to discover. And then we will probably switch over all the links which are currently in the meeting notes from G Drive links over to YouTube links.
Yeah, so will hopefully be easy to find even past recordings as well.
That's very much the intention, and everyone who's interested can always go back in the meeting notes and look at the links to the prior calls.
Yeah. I also want to add that the topics for the next community calls are still open. So if you have anything you want to demo or talk about or discuss, then reach out to me and I'll make sure to have some space for it in the next call. Cool. Well, if there's not any other topic you wish to discuss, then I'll say goodbye then, and I hope to see you next month.
Thank you, Marcus.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Bye all.
Bye-bye.